In the Clive Barker Podcast, longtime fans Ryan and Jose interview guests, bring you news, and take deep dives into Barker-related stuff. In episode 461, we continue our series on the Boom Studios Hellraiser comics with TheRoad Below. Plus, we go into one big listener question. This episode is sponsored by Don Bertram's Celebrate Imagination. Don Bertram is a longtime friend of Clive and advocate of his art, but Don's unique and inspiring paintings are for sale, and over 50% of the proceeds go to the Arts and Medicine program at the Texas Children's Cancer Center. There's even a paver at Washington, D.C. representing Celebrate Imagination. We're thrilled that this worthy cause is sponsoring our podcast again this year, and we hope that you'll consider looking over his Pinterest page and commissioning a painting of your own. For commissions, Don requires no money down, and there will be no obligation on your part. You can also head over to the Etsy shop to buy one of his books, like A Chimney Sweep's Tale, Celebrate Imagination, or The Imaginaries. Follow the link in the show notes, or click on the side banner, and let's see what's new with Don Bertram today. If you head over to his Facebook page, you can check out Fishes and another post with tulips and sunflowers. The proceeds from these paintings go to the Arts and Medicine program at the Texas Children's Cancer Center. So welcome to episode 461 of the Clive Barker Podcast. And good evening, Jose. How's it going?
I am doing really good, Ryan. I actually, as we record this, I just had to work this Saturday, 8 hours, and so I'm a little tired.
Yeah,
I have a little drink here, a little drinky poo, so that's helping me to be a little more focused and less scattered.
All right. Well, this issue we're getting back to the Boom Hellraiser comics, and actually, this is I take all the blame for this. Is totally my fault. We should have covered Hellraiser: The Road Below before we got to the Dark Watch, and you had actually even read them at one point. And,
right, that's true.
Yeah,
but I had read them because I wasn't paying attention to the notes that we had made for the episode. So
and I wasn't paying attention to the actual order that they were released in. I was looking at the order that they were in my box. And
but you know what? That's fair. It's actually kind of self-contained, so it really doesn't, in my opinion, make a big difference when it comes to the continuity.
It's lucky for us that you're right. It's really a self-contained little tangential side story. The only thing that places it in time at all in this series is that it's the time when Kirsty was Pinhead.
Right,
so
that's true.
We want to keep that in mind because as of the end of the Dark Watch, Kirsty's not Pinhead anymore.
This one was very enjoyable. Did you read it? Did you read the individual issues? Because I have this one as a single trade paperback.
Oh, that would be a good idea. And this time we get to cover the entire Dark Watch run because in one episode because it's only 4 issues. So I think a trade paperback would be a good idea. But no, I read the individual issues. I had to dig them up because they were all out of order in my box.
Another little advantage of having the trade paperback is that you don't have to look through the ads in the magazine. And at the end of the trade paperback, you get to see all the little covers that they made for all the separate issues. So that's a great little I can't stress that these paperbacks are really well made and planned from Boom Comics. And it's very practical. I really enjoyed reading it in this little trade paperback.
One thing that separates these from all the other Boom Hellraiser comics that we've discussed so far is that Clive Barker's not in the writer credits.
Oh, yeah. This one is Brendan Seifert.
Yeah, and art by Haemi Jang, which is good because it's good art, and we have the same artist and writer team through this whole 4-issue series, which is nice.
I love the art of Haemi Jang. I love the covers that Haemi Jang has made. And Brendan Seifert, I think I follow him on Instagram or Threads or both. Yeah. And he posts a lot of stuff. Like he will post like 30 stories a day sometimes of things he finds on Instagram. And he's a pretty cool account to follow, actually. I think I really enjoy the content that he keeps sharing over there.
He's from Fairbanks.
And the stuff. He is from Fairbanks?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Hey, it's a local boy. All right. And I have to say, I really enjoyed this story. I think at this point, they were really kind of start finally getting into the gears of it. And it's very well constructed, and it brings together a lot of things from the Clive Barker universe. It brings together the Weave world. It brings together the Hellraiser.
Yeah.
And possibly even a little bit of the Great and Secret Show. Yes.
The Books of the Art. Yeah, because there's
Books
Harry
of the Art,
DeMore
yes.
is there, and there's mention of the Dream Sea really briefly.
Yeah. So I thought this really ticked all the boxes for me because it's like the big unified universe of Clive Barker.
Right.
And it's a dramatic story. It's a blood feud between two families, and Pinhead's got in the middle.
And it's really kind of for the hardcore Barker fans because, we know reading this that these are seer kind, just from the way they talk, like the fact that they call humans sapas humana or cuckoos. But that's a pretty deep cut. I think that it would be hard for somebody to come into this and go like, who are these people again? Somebody who hadn't read Weave World, if they're just a Hellraiser fan.
And also, there's kind of a little bit of a hint of the Books of Art there, because there's one part here where a character says to the other, just because your kind or dreams come true, well, mine are living nightmares. Doesn't mean you should be shallow. So it made me think that, are these guys seer kind, or are they Tarata and, what was the other kind? Tarata was the living nightmares from the Books of the Arts. Right. But there was also dreams made flesh, right?
Yeah.
It's much more plausible what you said, because they do use the lingo from the seer kind, and they do call the cuckoos the sapas humana. So that's totally, Weave World stuff. I guess they're two seer kind clans. I just thought it was a cool little reference there, and I'm not sure if that was just put, like you said, for the hardcore Clive Barker fans to capture on that and be like, living nightmares, living dreams? Are we talking about the Books of the Art?
Can those people like grow up and have children and stuff like that? They seemed like a little less substantial than that, I guess, the Tarata and the...
This one opens up, so we're going a little back in time in the history that we've been talking about. We're going back to the time where Kirsty was still the Hell Priest, and Harry DeMore, wasn't involved in all of this. He does make an appearance in the story.
This is almost like a therapy session, right? Kirsty is like going to the female Cenobite and saying, hey, I basically screwed up, and I think I made a terrible mistake, and she's kind of, wanting to vent and say her feelings.
I've noticed that this is something that Brandon does every once in a while. He makes Kirsty and the female Cenobite step aside and talk about something that happened. And I think that's a really clever... This was the issue. I had kind of subconsciously knew that while I was reading the other issues, but in this one, it really came across like, oh yeah, of course, I get now. The reason why he keeps putting these inserts and we're seeing this as a flashback is just so they can add a little bit of perspective on what's going on and give us a little bit of exposition in these parts where they're talking to each other. So it's useful. I would say it's an interesting mechanic of writing, and I think it works well.
If it had kind of opened with the seer kind, it would be tough, and like Rhea Wolf, So if it had opened with her, it'd be like, is that Kirsty? Because she kind of looks like Kirsty.
She does a little bit, yes. Her daughter especially reminded me a little bit of the girl in the Hulu Hellraiser film.
Oh, yeah. Right.
Yeah. What's her name? Riley?
Riley, yeah.
Yeah. That kind of reminded me a little bit of that, because she does get involved with Hell in an interesting way. Rhea Wolf, she works at an occult bookstore that belongs to a man named Otto. And then I looked around for occult stores in Cleveland, and oh boy, there's a whole bunch of them. There's a whole bunch of occult stores. Coven Cleveland, Witch Shops of Cleveland. So that's kind of funny. I wonder, usually when you go to these places, it just ends up being a place where you can buy like some sage for smudging and some, they often have a scrapbooking section somewhere and whatever, and they'll have like beads and necklaces and things like that. So a lot of the stuff is very new agey, not really occult. But this store here in this comic book story is an actual occult store, right? They've got the good stuff in the back, and the cheap, ineffective stuff, it's in the front, which is what they really sell to like people who just come into the store, teenagers and people like that. They're like, oh, yeah, sure, we can get you some stuff with spells. Here, take this book. It's a new edition of an old book, but it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And you can tell that she knows that it's all nonsense. But the good stuff's in the back, right?
They've got some actually scary kind of crap in this store, just looking at what they have, how the back is laid out.
It makes you wonder a little bit about this character, Otto, because although he does have real occult stuff in his store, he doesn't seem like he ever really believed that stuff was real. So that gives him a kind of a weird double kind of like belief in this. He like believes it and he doesn't believe it, but then when he sees actual proof, he has to come to terms with that reckoning further in the story. So
yeah, he's a little bit like Chenard, like he owns it, but he doesn't want to mess with it.
Sure, that's a good point. Yeah, he just keeps it. He kind of keeps it around. So Rhea does have a daughter, right?
Cordell.
Yep, Cordell. She's also like a mini Kirsty. She's, she wants to talk to her parent to say that she got a job. And, she wants to be independent, I guess. She wants to have her own money. It's just reminded me of Kirsty going up to the house with Julia and her dad to say that she got an apartment or got a job or something like that. He's like, that's great, honey. She got a room. But she's in trouble, right? Because I think she was kind of grounded and her mom wanted her to come straight home from school. But Otto
took an extra hour.
And Otto leaves to send something in the mail, to put something in the mail, and then she's just left there with her mom. And she walks into the back, and we see that there's a lament configuration there, right? A box. And her mom did tell her not to touch anything. But, of course, the box kind of calls out to her, and she's about to touch the box. And all of a sudden we see, I said don't touch anything. So that's a little fake out there. It tells us that, hey, this store has stuff that's real.
And so Nethercoat shows up in Ezekiel Nethercoat shows up in the store, kind of in disguise, and
a very conspicuous disguise, if you ask me.
Yeah, but they don't recognize him.
He's got like a gigantic brimmed hat and a very, very like bulky raincoat that covers all the way up to his face.
Yeah, and he's looking at his cell phone, and he's like, look who I've found. And he's got pictures of Rhea and Cordell.
After work, Rhea is at the cemetery, and this is where we're going to find out what's going on with the story. This is going to be the kind of the opening incident that's going to set this in motion. She is there to mourn her husband, who's at the cemetery, and then she hears like someone starts talking to her, and it's that customer from the store, which you said, like you explained, was Ezekiel from a different family. Nethercoat, yes.
Or and he's coat, I think it's N-E-I, Nethercoat.
And this is where we start thinking, this guy doesn't seem human because his teeth are kind of sharp. They're not normal teeth, and he takes off his raincoat, and he's not human underneath that thing. He's like muscly, but he's like got these kind of almost like this armored skin or something.
Yeah.
And he can regenerate body parts if they get hacked off. Yeah. Which is something that happens here when they're confronting each other.
And so then he tells the story of the feud between them. That it seemed like after they came out of the feud, the two families agreed to have each other's backs. And one of them thought the other was going to turn them into the humans. One killed the other one, and this feud started.
Yeah, and then it's like, oh, you killed one of my clan, I killed one of yours, and it keeps going like that.
Yeah, and so now there's not that many of them left. There's only two wolves left, which is just Rhea and Cordell, right? Because the last one that was killed was Rhea's husband and Cordell's father. And then there are four members of the Nethercoat family.
Let me just go back there on one thing you said, which is in this confrontation, so Nethercoat tells Rhea that he's been stalking her family and has been killing them one by one. And I think the last person that he killed was one of her cousins.
Oh, that's
a few months ago.
Yeah.
So this kind of brings the point home that it's like, now you're the only one left. And it's like, oh, and guess what? I didn't know you had a daughter, but hey, now I'll take 2 for 1. And she's like, she blows up in this kind of like silvery tendril energy, right? Which is almost like reminded me of the menstruum in the Weave World.
Right, yeah.
But in this case, it's just some sort of power that her clan possesses. And we found out that she's not helpless, or so we think, until we find out that, that really, it kind of hurts him, but he can regenerate and he can still get you.
Yeah.
And that's not going to save you. That's not going to be enough. So she knows that she's the last one. She's got a daughter she has to protect. And he's got 3 other people, including the brothers and sisters of Ezekiel's wife, the member of the family that Rhea murdered. in retaliation for them murdering her husband. She needs to turn to a higher source of power, right?
Obviously, she's really desperate. I mean, she goes back to the bookstore and grabs the lament configuration. She's like, well, I can make a pact with a demon and make him do what I want, and then that'll help me protect my daughter.
And this is where the story gets even more interesting. Yeah, she turns to a higher source of power, right?
Yeah, and Kirsty shows up.
She summons the Cenobite. I guess she summons the box, but she had the knowledge beforehand to make a holding circle. When she says, what do you want? And she's like, well, I need your help. She explains the situation, that she needs to wipe out an entire clan that's trying to get her. And she's like, yeah, I'll pass on that. I'm not going to help you with that. And she's like, well, you don't have a choice, demon. And she starts like thinking that she can control her and puppet her to. Yeah. And she's like, actually, no. So she's like, I'm going to see if I can get out of this circle, and then we're going to have a little conversation, because you open the box and you got to go to hell.
And that was the end of episode or issue 1.
One thing that I thought was interesting is the connection between Kirsty finding out that she can break through the circle, and I think there's a part here somewhere in the story, maybe at the beginning, where she's talking to the female Cenobites, and she explains, yeah, there isn't a circle that can really hold Cenobites 100% yet, so that doesn't work for us. So I thought that was cool that they were keeping this coherent, except for the glyph of the Solutant, right? The glyph of the Solutant is the thing that takes away...
them mortal, so they can
mortal.
Get hurt.
Yeah. Rhea and Kirsty are kind of fighting and trying to outwit each other with spells and stuff. It's a little funny. There's a part here that Kirsty's walking through the house and the phone is ringing, and she's like, hey, your phone's ringing. You want to come back here and answer it?
Yeah.
Rhea kind of jumps out, but then she gets caught by Kirsty's scarves. As Kirsty's about to take her to hell, then Rhea kind of shows her hand, right? She shows her power.
She's reading something out of a book that's for scourging Lucifer's flagellants. And Kirsty's like, what the hell is this?
It's like a sunshine on vampires, right? It kind of burns her skin,
Yeah. She
reveals her power, Rhea, and she uses her power to like tear out a couple of Kirsty's pins out of her face. Yeah. And that really causes her a lot of discomfort. And she's like, well, what if I take out all of them? And then that's when Kirsty's like had enough of this, and she kind of immobilizes Rhea with her scarves, and she defeats her that way. So she kind of bounds her. And as she's about to drag her to hell,
Cordell shows up.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the last thing you want a kid to see, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and she's like, sorry, kid.
She didn't mean to do that. And this is something that I've never seen before in a Hellraiser story. Cordell kind of tries to reach out to her mother as the doors of the walls are closing in. You know, the Hellraiser, portal is closing in.
Your arm's going to get crushed.
And yeah, I never realized that could happen. It's a little interesting tidbit they made here. So if you stay within the walls
will crush you.
Yeah, you could get crushed. And so she uses her power to push away her daughter, and her daughter doesn't understand what's going on and doesn't understand what her mother did. And she's left in an empty room. And that's the end of Chapter 2. Chapter 3 opens up with Kirsty talking to the female Cenobite again and explaining how at this point she had really stepped on it and made a mess of things. But she says, well, if anything, you were just being a little overzealous, blah, blah, blah. One thing you could have done, you could have just taken that woman's soul and left the body behind, which I guess means like you should have just chained her up, tore her to pieces, and just come back to hell with her soul instead of just bringing her body into hell physically.
And she kind of dumps her off. She's like, here's your own private hell, enjoy. And she dumps her off in a hell that looks just like the one that Frank had, which is like a morgue with these tables that slide out with the bodies on them. And there's bodies of all of her family and stuff. I
think it's her daughter. Multiple bodies of her daughter. Multiple cadavers. It's her daughter dissected in different ways in every single drawer. Which is interesting because it's kind of a counterpoint to what Frank's hell room was like, where he's being teased by sexy women coming out of these drawers. Yeah. But here it's just horror that comes out of the drawers. Yeah. It's just dead bodies of your own child in front of you, and it's like maybe a little too much. Maybe you get desensitized after a while. seeing several bodies of the same person would definitely tell me that none of these bodies are real. There can't be multiple bodies. But it's enough, just a view of that, it's enough to torture you mentally.
Then Cordell runs back to the bookstore and is yelling about this woman with pins in her face, and she dragged my mom through the walls, and he's like, "Are you on drugs?" Which is, his reaction is really weird because he knows what the Cenobites are, and he knows the stories of what happens when you open the box, but he's acting like she's insane and she's on drugs.
He still hasn't figured out that this stuff is real. It's like it's the old analogy of being in the cave, right? If the shadows are all you see, you think the world are shadows. Like if all you see is mundane stuff, you start thinking there's no magic. So there's no way that you saw like a demon capture your mother, you're on drugs, and you've set fire to my store, which she didn't. That was actually Ezekiel. I guess he was trying to smoke them out.
Cordell runs into Ezekiel, and he's like, "I really wanted to kill you in front of your mom, but I guess I can't because she's gone."
There's a funny moment where she uses pepper spray and mace on him, and he just kind of goes like, "Okay, that's peppery." Reminds me a little bit of like Peliquin, the character from Nightbreed.
He does a little bit, yeah.
And he's trying to manipulate her, right? I mean, he's trying to be like, "Hey, I'm not here to hurt you. I just want to tell you how much of a horrible person your mother is and what she did to my family, so maybe you'll understand."
He seems he's really powerful for a seer kind. I mean, from what I remember of Weave World, I don't remember any of them being this powerful.
Yeah, he's pretty powerful. He's kind of a metamorph. He kind of can regenerate body parts. He can create
He's got this
armor skin
look to him. He's super tall and muscular.
I like the way that Brendan Seifert writes dialogue. Sometimes it can be a little funny unwittingly, but it does feel genuine sometimes. Ezekiel scares Cordell, and she kind of activates her power by accident, right? For all of these people, their powers are all going to be kind of different. So in terms of Cordell's power, she has the same silvery tendrils energy that comes out of her body, but when she focuses on someone, she kind of connects and see what's in their head. So she kind of bonds.
She calls it a mind meld, like Star Trek.
Like Spock.
Yeah.
And we see that Ezekiel was not always a bad guy. He was a guy trying to live his life. It's hard to understand how him and his brothers could mingle in with humans because they look pretty different. But, let's just assume that when they put on their hats and their sunglasses, they look just like scarred people, I guess. So I guess they could probably pass as humans.
So he walked in on Rhea not just killing his wife, but she decapitated her.
So like you said, there was some sort of paranoia going on between the two families. They were thinking one was going to expose the other to the humans. Yeah. And so apparently Ezekiel is at home and he sees his wife bleeding and hurt coming in through the front door. And she says that it was Ivan Wolf. He was double crossing us. He was going to turn us over to the humans. And then some of his brothers, Ezekiel's brothers, had gone off and killed Rhea's husband for retaliation. And then he walks into Rhea Wolf after she beheaded his wife who was sleeping, recovering from her wounds. And there's this awesome panel where her hair is floating in the wind. And she's like, "This is for my husband." And she obviously came in through the window. And there's a corpse of Ezekiel's wife with the head torn off. And that's basically what caused this entire thing to escalate and become the blood feud that we see now.
So it also makes you wonder if her husband really was going to turn them into the humans or if it was just some kind of paranoia.
Yeah, I think that's the general idea that they give the reader, is that this probably was just kind of like paranoia, that there was really no reason for the two families to turn against each other. So all this pain is for nothing. And I think the way Christie's talking about this, she kind of hints at that too. Like all this pain between these two families that was so unnecessary, and I was caught in the middle of it. Otto shows up, right? When Cordell is about to be threatened by Ezekiel, Otto shows up with a gun and he's like, "Oh my God, you're not human." And he kind of shoots at him. But of course, since this guy can regenerate and is kind of a metamorph, it doesn't really hurt him. And he just says, "Okay, well, we've got an appointment. I got to meet your mother, and I'll come back for you." So And then a little foreshadowing. Otto says he's got a heart condition and that he's very nervous about all this. And that's going to pay off a little further ahead. Yeah. It's like they go back to what's left of the bookstore, and Otto goes into like a little nook. He pulls out a fake thing and he gets out a fifth of liquor and is like, okay, well, here's the 21 years of sobriety. The stuff he saw tonight, I mean, just really made him want to go back on the liquor. But Cordell is trying to say, well, listen, you know, I need to help my mom, and you can't fall off the wagon now. I need your help. Where's that Satan Rubik's Cube?
Yeah. And he's like, not Satan, Leviathan.
And this is the part that you brought up earlier, where he's like, he goes on some website on his computer and is showing her like what the Cenobite is. And I'm like, oh boy, this part was a little hokey, but it's just for exposition. That's fine.
Yeah, she's like, well, yeah, she had the pins in her head, but she was wearing white and not leather.
So unbeknown to Otto and Cordell, Ezekiel is still watching them from outside, and he hears some movement, and it's like his family has arrived, the other 3 members of the Nethercoats. And he gets a little upset. He's like, well, you know, I was going to take care of these guys. So, but they say something that I think is hilarious. It's like, well, your wife was our sister, so there's no dibs on this. Yeah. And then what does Cordell and Otto do? They summon Kirsty with the cube, right?
Yeah, and this time they're using the glyph of the Solutant, because Otto is like, no, this is what you need to use for Cenobites.
One thing that disappointed me in this story was just the fact that anybody, just by touching the box, can open it almost instantaneously.
Yeah.
But that's that thing, you know, that's that thing that all the movies started doing too, so...
Yeah, over time it got easier and easier and easier to open the box.
Yeah. To the point where now I think next movie someone just looks at the box and the box is going to start moving. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, there was it Deader, I think, where they dropped it on the floor and it opened?
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. So chapter 4, and I think this is kind of the last issue.
Yeah.
We go back to the conversation where the female Cenobite and Kirsty are reminiscing on this. And she explains that she was trying not to get killed by Cordell because with the glyph of the Solutant, she was now mortal inside the circle. So she, with her silvery tendril power, could try to hurt Kirsty. Kirsty breaks out. Otto kind of runs away, but gets caught by Kirsty. And in this whole fighting thing where he's trying to shoot Kirsty and she kind of restrains him, she accidentally kills Otto because he had a heart condition. So his heart gave out. Yeah. And oh boy, this is really going to set off Cordell now.
Well, he shot Kirsty.
He did, yes.
Shoulder, yeah.
Which is not going to kill her, but it hurts.
Yeah.
So Cordell is restrained by Kirsty so that they can understand what's going on. I think Cordell kind of mind melds with Kirsty, right?
Yeah.
And then Kirsty understands everything that has been going on and everything that, you know, this family is going through and the other family, and it's hard to come up with a solution, right? But she kind of does. She's like, "Hey,
why don't you
want a job?"
Yeah, because she's been bugging her mom to get a job, and her mom wouldn't let her. And she's like, "Well, I can give you a job."
To be honest, her power is just a mind meld with people, and her mother's power is not enough to fight 1 Nethercoat, never mind 4. She gives her kind of a pitch, like, you can come in and help Hell, and you'll have enough power to help your mother.
And I'm trying to remember, did we see this Cenobite in The Dark Watch?
I don't think we did. No, I don't remember her.
So Cordell becomes a Cenobite, is basically what we're getting at.
They even pull out like a Cenobite maker cabinet, right, out of the ground, just like Hellbound.
And it looks like an Iron Maiden.
Yes. Spikes in the inner walls and stuff.
Yeah.
Since the deal has been struck, right, so now the mother can go free. And Kirsty goes to pick her up and says, yeah, let's get you out of here. You had a parole. And she brings her back to her house. And then when she gets there, she sees her daughter has been turned into a Cenobite. And can you describe the Cenobite to me? It's kind of hard to describe it.
For starters, it looks like they opened up her stomach and wrapped her intestines around her neck.
Yep.
Which is, I never noticed that detail before until just now. The skin's been sort of flayed off of her hands. And it's really, really long, like these ropey tentacles. And so she can kind of use that as weapons.
Yeah. And she's got these like spiky gauges in her ears. And her skin is white and her head is shaved and she's got this cool black dress, kind of flowy dress.
Yeah.
And her hands are flayed, but her hands are kind of always obscured by these flails that she has, like these straps of skin that are hanging off of her arm.
Yeah, they're so long that they would drag on the ground.
Yeah. Of course, this horrifies Rhea. It's like, oh my God, what happened? She's like, I did what I had to do to save you. I did what I had to do to get the power that's going to help us defeat these guys. And as it turns out, the Nethercoats have been outside the wolf house this whole time, so they just break in and like, hey, the family's together. You should savor these last moments. And Kirsty's like, oh, shit. No, I'm just caught in the middle of two warring clans.
Yeah, and Cordell's like, everybody stand back. Even you, Kirsty, stand back. I'll take care of this.
And she does quite well, I would say. Very adept in her first job as a Cenobite. She
decapitates all of them except for Ezekiel.
Yeah, within seconds, right?
Yeah.
They're just, living creatures. They're metamorphs. They don't have power running in their blood like a Cenobite would have. So, her straps of skin are kind of like slicing their heads off, at least two of them. And the other guy gets kind of taken out limb by limb, right? The one who can grow his limbs just keeps getting sliced into smaller bits until she's just holding his head.
Yeah, and Cordell gets kind of cocky about it too. She's like, where are your threats now? Come on, you're supposed to be my boogeyman. And she cuts him up into little pieces. She says that was disappointing. And
at that point, the Nethercoat family is dead. The blood feud is done. But Kirsty, she feels bad about this because she got summoned into this situation. She got put in the middle of this. And Kirsty, she wants to just punish people who are guilty, right? I mean, she doesn't really want to be involved in this kind of situation. So obviously she still has that idea that this could all have been avoided.
Yeah, but at the same time, I kind of feel like it's really Rhea's fault. I mean, she's the one that summoned Kirsty, and she didn't know what she was doing. I mean, she was lucky that she got Kirsty at all, because any other Cenobite would have just dragged her back to hell and tormented her.
Well, I agree with you. I think that she didn't do the right things here. I wouldn't blame her for it, but it's like she messed with things that she didn't understand.
Yeah.
And it ended up costing her her daughter. The female Cenobite is really happy about this because, hey, you ended up, this is a victory for us. You ended up getting one more to our ranks.
Yeah.
The first one since Kirsty is Hell Priestess.
Yeah.
If you discount her friends and fiancé that she turned into Cenobites.
Yeah, and the female Cenobite's perspective is totally different from Kirsty's because Kirsty is feeling bad. She dragged somebody into the life of hell, and all she ever wanted to do was get away from it. And this young girl, she dragged her into it, made her become a Cenobite. And the female Cenobite just thinks of it like, well, isn't this ironic? All those years of you using the glyph of the Solutant against us, and now somebody used it against you.
And I forgot to mention, this whole stuff was happening in New Orleans, right? The city where this is happening is New Orleans. So we cut back here to this kind of little epilogue at the end, and it's Rhea looking at her husband's grave, and a man shows up and says, hey, I'm sorry for your loss. And she's like, yeah, I'm in a cemetery, dude. Don't hit on me. Yeah. And he's like, well, I'm not. I'm being serious. It must be hard having your daughter recruited by hell. And we're like, oh, this guy knows more than a parent. And she's like, how do you know about that? It's like, Otto Anderek, he told a friend of mine all about what happened in his store. And it's like, Otto's dead. And it's like, my friend's a medium.
His friend would be Norma Payne.
Norma Payne.
Yeah.
And it's like, my name is D'Amour, Harry D'Amour. Little James Bond moment there. So he says, well, if you want revenge on hell, I can give you the weapons to do it. And that's where the story ends. That's the road below. And then this would move on to the Dark Watch, right?
Yeah, but she doesn't become a part of the Harrowers or anything. I mean, I don't think...
Yeah, I guess... I think this was...
Bestiary. I don't think that this comes back anymore, does it?
I don't remember anything coming back. I think this might have been one of the things they were trying to set up for the future, but then kind of like when the comic stopped, that they didn't have a chance to finish that.
So we've got Bestiary is next, and those issues, from what I remember, those are like anthology stories.
Those are going to be interesting. There's short stories who are going to be getting back to that tradition of anthology issues for Hellraiser stories in comic book form, which is what we had back in the Marvel years in 93 and stuff.
Yeah. So we had one comment from one of our new Patreon patrons. Amanda Stewart said, "Ooh, I really enjoyed it. The artwork was different, and as I went on, I really grew to like it a lot. I really enjoyed the expanded universe where Leviathan, Cenobites, and the Nightbreed exist together, and now we see there are others too. I thought Cordell's Cenobite design, was gorgeous.
Cordell's Cenobite design, yeah.
Yeah, especially the flayed hands and the draped skin blades, which she used to great effect. Makes me wonder if Kirsty properly thought through turning a creature who already had significant supernatural power into a Cenobite, especially a teenage one. Also loved Harry turning up. I feel like that would have already had this he would have already had this feud in his radar in some way, and now he has to get involved."
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, I agree. I thought this was a good story, and I can't remember if this comes up in any of the short Bestiary stories or not, or if this is kind of the end of it. I guess we'll find out when we get there again.
Yeah, I haven't read those for a while. When did those come out?
I think it was right after The Dark Watch, so probably 13 to 14 maybe.
Bestiary came out 2014, and Bestiary number 2 came out in 2014 as well. Yep, I see it. All right, so that's been 10 years. Yeah. Oh, wow, that's been 10 years. Holy crap.
I know. It seems like this is still new stuff, but it's 10 years
I know. Ago. Like, I remember when I bought that thing, I was still living in California. Yeah, that's right. I was still living in California. I moved through that to Arizona and then to Ohio. Wow. That 10 years ago, that's a lot. We put
a call out for any discussion that people might want us to have, and Dustin Vanderpool said, "Yes, announce that you've done the research and now y'all are finally going to go all of the rest of the unreleased Hellraiser scripts, treatments, etc. They exist, and there's a lot of them. I'd suggest digging into Mr. H's videos on them."
Sure.
Because he brought this up before, and I told him, we have done a lot of these. It's going to take me a while to put together which ones we've done. So I think that's what he meant by research.
Yeah, so we have 460 episodes now. It's. I understand that some people haven't seen most of them, especially newer people. It takes a long time to go through the episodes.
Yeah. So, but I put them all together, and this one, the first one, number 15, is not really a Hellraiser movie, but we talked about the Hellraiser video game. And then 18 and 19 were the movies that never were, and that covers the Hellraiser 3 in Egypt. And then in episode 58, I interviewed Paul Gerard to talk about Hellraiser Origins.
That's right. That was his pitch. Yeah.
Yeah. And in 118, Duels of Blood Round 2 plus exclusive look at Hellraiser treatment. So there was a Hellraiser treatment. I can't remember which one is on that one. And then 121, that we talked about the movie script called The Box is Back.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And 122 was the one about where they crammed Hitler's heart in a toddler.
Yep. Yeah. That was a weird one. All these treatments, or some of them had always these cultists with tattoos and whatever of the Hellraiser box and stuff like that. And I was like, I don't know about that, dude.
Yeah. And then we talked to, and then this isn't Hellraiser, but The Great Unknown, Harry D'Amour's First Adventure in 137.
That's another script. Yep.
Yeah, we interviewed Kevin Yeager to talk about Hellraiser Bloodline and what could have been.
Oh my God, that was so good.
Yeah.
Even though we did it on the floor of a hotel hallway, it was. It's like he literally just okay, let's do it here. Is it okay if we do it here? Because there was a lot of noise everywhere, and he just kind of walked us into a random hallway, and just sat down and all right, let's all sit here and just go through these questions. And that was cool of him.
Yeah, and Rob Ridenauer really did all the work for that. You and I just kind of held the equipment.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
And then
he had all those cool questions about Chucky and about all those other movies he was involved with, and Tales from the Crypt. Yeah.
And then the Hellraiser remake chat, which wasn't talking about any specific movie, just what we would like to see, I think.
Did we bring in guests for that one? Because I'm seeing the big Hellraiser remake chat. We had Danny Stewart from Leviathan, Paul T. Taylor from Hellraiser Judgment, Catalina from Little Spark Films, and Ed Martinez.
Yeah.
You know, I remember this vaguely, but now I feel like I should listen to it. This was from back in 2019. That was 5 years ago.
Right. And then we talked 259. We talked about Hellraiser on HBO. Everything we knew about it. I don't know if that script is public. 436. We did a commentary on the Hellraiser Bloodline work print.
For the one that came out with the
Quartet of Torment,
Torment, yeah.
Yeah, and then 459, just 2 episodes back, Hellraiser 5 Hellfire.
Yeah, the treatment by Stephen Jones and Stephen Jones and Michael Marshall Smith. Yeah. He also scripted the first draft of the miniseries of Weaveworld, based on the epic fantasy novel by Clive Barker for the Showtime Network.
The one for Showtime, not the newer one with the pastry chef and whatever.
Right, the app designer. Yep.
Right.
So thank you, Amanda, for joining our Patreon. It's really refreshing to see more people joining that, and it's always great to have people join the fold. And it's great knowing that you're out there listening to us. I really appreciate that.
And we had one more, too. We did a blog review of Hellraiser remake script. So this wasn't a podcast episode, but it was a blog.
Yep. Rob Ridenauer, December 10, 2017. Yep.
Yeah. So now we can do the Patreon member shout out. So special thanks to all of our Patreon members, David Anderson, Eric Vanderholt, Daniel Elvin, and our new one, Amanda Stewart. So thanks, Amanda, like Jose was saying. And, of course, to our returning sponsor, Don Bertram and Celebrate Imagination.
Don Bertram, love you, man.
Yay. Of course, the best way to support this podcast is through our Patreon at patreon.com/BarkerCast589. Our subscribers will get exclusive access to content not available anywhere else, like our Collector's Corner video series, rare Barker videos, and early behind-the-scenes stuff. Plus, backers in the $10 tier will also be able to choose an episode topic, and we might mail you something once in a while, depending on your location. Our supporters also get access to the exclusive channel in our Discord server. We'll be forever grateful if you consider helping us out and subscribing to our Patreon. So what's new on Patreon? One quick mention to people thinking about subscribing to our Patreon and contributing. Don't use the iOS app. Starting in November, Apple is going to charge their 30% cut, and Patreon is going to forward that on to the subscribers. So that means you'd have to pay 30% extra if you use the iPhone app instead of just doing it on the website. So I just do it on the website.
I mean, sure, that's an option. Yeah, that's a much better option. That saves you 30% increase. You made a blog post recently, right, for our Patreon subscribers?
Yeah, just a little one, kind of a behind the scenes, because I was going through. I've been trying to figure out how to get some of our show notes back when we used to use Evernote, and after 10 years of keeping that Evernote on my computer, so that one day maybe I'll remember how to log in, or where did all the data go, and I logged myself out and tried a different login, and all of a sudden I got everything back. And so our seasons 1, 2, and 3, I was able to restore all the show notes into our OneNote, which took me a couple hours, but I got it done.
I'm going to have to go through that and see what notes there might be from me and stuff, because that's stuff that was 12 years ago, maybe. Yeah. Around that, maybe
there
10
was
years
one
ago.
thing that said Odyssey Ryan. I'm like, what is this? And it was one of those stories where everybody goes round robin and tells a part of the story. And so I wrote out my part of this story called Odyssey.
Oh, cool. Okay, Odyssey. That was the one on DeviantArt, right?
Yes. Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
I remember that now. Yes. I wonder if that's still up there, because I know that when Clive Barker's DeviantArt account got kind of scrubbed of a bunch of stuff, so I'm not sure if there's still a thing we could see. But I'd like to go back to those blog posts and check the links and see if they work. Hey, nice blast from the past there, Ryan. Thanks for putting that in my
it also reminded
pin.
me of how disorganized our old show notes were. Some of them look really terrible.
Yeah,
especially in the first season.
It was just sometimes like short notes and sentences that didn't make any sense a week from when you wrote them, because you wouldn't know, you wouldn't remember what you were talking about.
But over the years, I've been trying to make them so that I can so that they're also the outline, for the show notes that go on the episode, so that I don't have to rewrite them, when we're posting the episode.
Yeah.
And that's saved me a lot of time having it done that way.
What else is coming up next? I think we're going to get into that Blu-ray for Rawhead Rex, right?
Right. Yeah, and we can talk about, because I don't think that we actually reviewed about it as a review. We just talked about it as news. So we can talk about both the 4K and the HD versions.
Since you have both, can you tell me, is there a difference between both of them, or are they basically the same content?
I don't think so, but I think they put different names on some of the same features, so it's kind of hard to tell.
Okay.
But it looks like it's the same stuff.
I'll look into it, because now I got an Ultra HD Blu-ray player, so I want to know if it's worth getting the Ultra HD as well. Yeah.
Well, and I've been noticing that on some movies I can't tell the difference between 4K and 1080p.
Sure.
On some movies.
Yeah, I get that. Yep. All right, and then we're also going to talk about more Boom Hellraiser coverage, the Quartet of Torment Disc 3, which hopefully we'll be able to be joined by our good friend Peter Atkins, who wrote the script for that. And we'll do more news and interviews as they come along.
And we'll go back to Jericho Squad.
Right. I know actually, our friend Ed.
The main part of what I had planned, we didn't even get to. We just got to we just did the little preamble part, which was the Beholder part, which was, to me, that was just a little part in the beginning.
Oh yeah. Right. That creature. That was a creature from Apexamendios with a giant eye. That was kind of tough, but it made us think a little bit out of the box in terms of strategies to defeat him.
Yeah, especially when everybody's already half dead, and
blasting a hole through the wall was a really cool idea.
Yeah,
because it helped us not only attack him through the hole, but also escape and hide behind the wall. That was good thinking from Joe. Ralph. All right, so we'll do more Jericho Squad, and because I know Ed is still working on his channel. He's gotten some more interviews that we can't talk about right now, but he's got more cool stuff coming your way anytime now. So let's keep an eye on Ed Martinez's YouTube channel.
Yeah.
And
one more thing I wanted to talk about also is so there were two scripts actually that we haven't covered, because Winnie told me you should look at Mr. H's stuff. So I went and looked at Mr. H's stuff, and there's something called Hellraiser Eternal Darkness, and another one called Hellraiser Lament, and I don't think we've covered those. So that's something else that we might look up and see if we can cover those in the future.
Okay.
There was also
never heard of them.
Mr. H wrote himself, which I don't think we're going to tell you that.
I'll pass on that one. Thank you.
Yeah. It's like he talks about, Clive Barker can't save Hellraiser. He's going to ruin it. But here's my script.
All right. Let's settle down, Beavis, Mr. H. Okay, well, the darkness, you say, Eternal Darkness. Now that name sounds
Eternal
cool.
Eternal Darkness and Hellraiser Lament.
I've never heard of that. I just did a quick Google search. Nothing comes up. I'm not sure what that is, but we'll look into it. 2 new things to discover, 2 new mysteries to explore.
Looking at it now, I think those might be the only things that we've missed. At least that are public knowledge.
Hey, I'm curious about something. Do you collect Funkos, Ryan? Do you have any Funkos from Hellraiser?
No.
Okay.
I don't like them. They all look the same.
That's true. That's a fair point. I was just wondering because I keep seeing this Chatter Funko Pop, and I've always just seen the stock photo of it. I've never seen anybody that has that. I don't know what the box looks like, and I'm just curious about that. So if anybody out there has the Chatter or Funko Pop, can you send me a picture of the box and what it looks like? I'm really curious about that.
Vince has one, or maybe you could find one on eBay.
I should go to his website. Maybe he has one signed for sale.
Yeah.
Okay.
There you go.
All right. That's how my brain works. I will say my goodbyes, and we'll catch you guys again next week.
And this podcast having no beginning will have no end. Thank you for joining us, and we hope you have subscribed. You can find the Clive Barker Podcast wherever you find audio. Show notes for this episode, as well as news and reviews, can be found at our website at www.clivebarkercast.com. The Clive Barker Podcast, or BarkerCast, is an independent editorial podcast and blog that is not affiliated with or under contract by Clive Barker or Seraphim Inc. This is a labor of love by the fans for the fans. You can chat with us on our Facebook BarkerCast listeners group, our Facebook page, Twitter, or our Discord server. The best way to support us is to buy our book, The BarkerCast Interviews Occupy Midian, available in hardcover on Amazon and ebook on Amazon and Apple Books. Fundraiser 10 is all about Patreon this year. Become a patron to get access to exclusive stuff, pick an episode topic, and maybe even get cool stuff in the mail. You can also buy a t-shirt on our TeePublic store. Go to tpublic.com and search for BarkerCast. Leave a message for us using the SpeakPipe link on our blog. Opening and ending music generously provided by Ray Norrish.
Thanks for listening.